Welcome back to the Arbitrage Run show with your host Donkey Teeth from Arbitrage Racing, and special guest this week. Kevin is down he's down under in Australia. Actually, I think he's on a cruise right now, Keith. He's cruising from Australia to New Zealand.
Nice.
It's like a 2-day boat cruise. He said, I didn't know what was going on. He was explaining it to me today, and then he's going to be cruising around New Zealand for a couple days. And there's a sports book on his cruise ship.
He's living the dream.
Yeah, I'm jealous. It sounds like an amazing trip. But we've got Donkey Keith here filling in, one of our favorites from Crimson Racing. What's happening, man?
I'm good. Happy to be back. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So today's show, we have a special show. First, there's an announcement that just dropped about Stamina, the Stamina refactor that we knew was coming. We didn't know the details. Those details were just dropped. We're going to dive in on that. We got to spin our wheel. We've got 2 giveaways to do. We're giving away a horse to one of the people that bought a horse from us for the last maiden, and then we're giving away 20% of our profit, which was quite a bit. Actually, 20% of our winnings from this mini maiden that just ran yesterday. Yeah, we had a really nice maiden turnout. So somebody's going to win. Kevin's supposed to be getting me the number. He's doing the math down there on his honeymoon. But I think we were. I know the U.S. dollar amount is changed now because ETH has gone down in the past 24 hours. But the U.S. dollar amount was somewhere around 4,000 yesterday that we won. So somebody's getting 20% of that. It may be a little bit less than 20% of 4,000 since we get paid out in ETH and it's down. But we'll do that. And then we're going to talk about everything that you are not having with Zed right now. I'm going to say hate. I'm going to label this show hate because it's going to sell well. Clickbait. People will click on it. I mean,
hey, I can hate if you want. I can be a hater.
You're a hater. But you're one of the less vocal haters in the community. And like we talked about the last time that you were on, or one of the last times you were on, probably with Souls in your debate episode. Like, I think we end up being very close together in the way that we see things. It's just it's that those little differences in the way that we express it and where we're at in our lives and stuff like that. I think it comes out in a different way, but generally I think we end up seeing eye to eye. So it is interesting having these discussions, and we'll dive in on that for probably like the second 2/3 of the show. That'll be the meat of the show. But let's talk about this announcement that just came out, Keith. Stamina refactor. I'll pull up on the screen here the announcement from Zed, and then also we can see I don't think this actually says the details, but it's coming next week, it says. And then if you go over to the guide that's linked here in the Zed Discord, let me just pull that page up. It says that we're going to get 8 races, and they're as Facundo said, they're changing it. We're no longer going to have those stupid percentages where nobody races really below 90% or very rarely for some like weird fringe cases. Now we're just getting 8 stamina bars. So each horse will have 8 stamina to start. And once you race once, it'll take 3 hours to regenerate that stamina. And then you can either run all 8 at once, and then you'll have to wait 3 hours for one, and then another 3 hours for the next one, up to 24 hours to get all 8 back. And each time you race, you lose 1 stamina bar. Pretty much your understanding of it, Keith?
Yeah, you nailed it. It's definitely simpler. It's probably better. We don't have any of this, was a horse fatigued? Was it not? Was it on the fringe? Was, Zed UI not updated correctly? I know that's happened to people in the past. This should be pretty straightforward. You're either allowed to race or you're not allowed to race. Do you have an open bar or do you not have an open bar? One of the nuances you didn't touch on, but maybe it's worth mentioning. So it sounds like you'll have a full white bar. If maybe you scroll down a little bit here on the page, when you have an open one, you enter a race and the bar will show like a little dash right there where your mouse is. And then when the race actually runs, it will go gray. So that way, if a race is canceled, that little dashed box would just come back to you. So the fatigue does not get spent until the race actually runs. So people don't have to worry about a race not running and you losing a fatigue bar. But yeah, pretty simple. I like it.
Yeah, they're calling that reserve stamina. When you've entered a race, it hasn't run yet, you get this dash here. And it'll be interesting too. Like I assume when sit and goes come, like there'll be sit and goes that reserve 3 bars or 4 bars. Maybe it takes all of your stamina reserved and you can't run at all if you want to enter a certain sit.
That's a great point. And that's probably part, I would imagine, of why they did this as well. Because like now we don't have to do the math of, by the time the sit and go runs, I'm going to be at 95%. Am I going to have enough if I keep winning to go down? And, maybe they wouldn't run those races with stamina anyway, but I would imagine, like you just said, that that's probably what they would do.
Yeah, and it does say that will qualifying for tournaments affect my racehorse's stamina? No, racehorses do not need to spend or reserve stamina to participate in tournaments. I think that means if you qualify for a tournament, those
Correct.
tournament races will not affect stamina as they have in the past, though, right?
Not for a long time. Well, yes, they
affect it
they affect the fatigue afterward. They don't take
afterward.
stamina into account. So yes, this sounds like it would be different. They won't use any of your 8 essentially.
Yeah,
and
the
have no
wording is
impact.
weird here. To be honest, I guess that's how I'm reading it. Sounds like that's how you're reading it too.
I'm reading it the same way, and I think that makes the most sense, right? They don't want to, now it's becoming, we're going from essentially call it 16 to 18 races a day, possible for a horse not to be fatigued, down to 8. So, you're basically getting cut in half or more. And this assumes now you're running, 8 races either all at once or waiting every 3 hours to do it. So, this is a good change. I think, like we should read into what are the effects of this. And I think, a lot of us have publicly clamored for this. I know you and Kevin have been on team cut stamina. I've publicly been on that team. I know Dan Shannon, many others have, vocally as well on Twitter. But it just makes total sense, even if it hurts players like you who, have the horses to keep running all day. I think even, someone like Wagme would argue the same thing. It just is better for the game. We don't need horses running close to 20 times a day, filling every race with the same horses. This should broaden out the fields, weaken the fields a little bit, bring more horses into the fray. So I think this was much needed. I think 8 is a good number. I think you could probably argue, plus or minus that number, but like 8 is right in that sweet spot, I think. And then we need to remember too, this sets them up for aging, right? So like 8 sounds like that's kind of the starting point, right? I'm imagining they're not going to move it from here. And then, however aging works, you're going to cut down the time to regenerate to get back to 8. So this is kind of the new ZED going forward.
Yeah. So yeah, a couple other things that I like about this, Keith. Number one, it was really difficult when you're running a bunch of horses to remember, like, oh, am I in? How many races am I in with this horse?
Yep.
It's got 92% stamina, 91% stamina. I got to go look and see, or I just forget about it and run a different horse or something like that,
Yep, totally.
And now I was thinking, well, now we got this bar to show if they're in reserve, but we don't even need that anymore because there's no longer the stupid, percentages. So
Right.
it'll just, if you got a race, you use it. If you don't, you don't.
Right.
So that's awesome. One of the things that you've given me a list of all the things you hate about ZED that we're going to discuss. One of the things that you don't like is the grind for XP. This definitely helps alleviate that.
It does.
To a certain degree. We'll see, we'll see in practice what it looks like, because we know that there's some other updates coming, aging coming, potential to buy and sell XP and all that. And the ability to earn XP quicker is coming as well with aging, it sounds like. So that was another thing. And the third thing that I like about it is, hopefully, like you mentioned, hopefully it softens race fields. Yeah, it does kind of handicap to a certain extent the ability of top horses to earn to the maximum, like you said. But at the same time, a lot of these horses are having trouble finding races to run in anyway.
Yep.
And for deeper stables, we have second tier horses that never even see daylight that would be fun to get out there or loan to other people. Like,
Exactly.
I just think, the benefit to the ecosystem is huge. And we're all about figuring out how to make this game fun for the masses and adoptable, because, the game doesn't work when you've got 200 people playing it.
Totally agree. I think I agree with everything you just said. Plus, when we do think about user acquisition, bringing new players in, like, simple is better. And just from the get-go, this is going to be a much more understandable system for someone who doesn't know ZED. So wait, I can run at 90 or I have to be at 91. We don't have to worry about any of that gray area anymore. If you have the stamina bar, just you run a race. That's it.
Yep. Simpler is better. And I think that's the spirit of a lot of these changes. Whether they've worked or not, we'll discuss later. But let's spin the wheel real quick and then dive in on that conversation. Keith, we're giving away, as I said off the bat, 2 items here. We had, I believe it was 24 horses that we sold. I was surprised after that last maiden. I didn't think there was going to be as much demand. But this actually turned out to be a pretty fun mini maiden.
Yep.
The competition was a little bit softer. So, some of the breeds that I didn't necessarily think were going to have a great chance ended up being very profitable. So we had 24 people buy horses from our UUU stable that we bred, and they all got entries into our raffle. The first thing that we're going to raffle is 20% of our profits. We'll let the winner know exactly what that number ended up being here. But this is the one you want to win. The second one is going to be a UU horse. This is kind of the consolation prize for the second raffle that I run here. And it's going to be worth, we'll have it listed at 0.15 Ethereum range. So we'll be sending that out to the second winner. So we'll spin the first one here for 20% of our maiden winnings. Pretty juicy prize here. Good luck, everyone. Naz, congrats, man. And he had a couple horses in there, so he had a couple entries. They paid off. So we will remove one of his entries, and then we'll spin it again. This is going to be for the UUU. We have valued at 0.15 Ethereum, and boom. Good luck again, everyone. Bergie. OG Bergie, congrats, man. So we will get you that horse.
Bugsy, is that different?
Oh, it's Bugsy. It's not Bergie.
Bugsy.
Bugsy Studs. I almost had to send it to the wrong guy. Bugsy Studs. Congrats. Bugsy. But yeah, we appreciate everybody who bought a horse from us. Hopefully you had some winners. We're actually going to do some calculations and see how all those horses turned out. So, we can see. Hopefully we're selling some high quality ones. I know there's been some winners in there, but it'd be nice to see like exactly what the hit rate is and profitability is across all these horses that we have sold over the past two maidens.
I was going to say the same thing. Obviously I haven't looked, but I would imagine, you're giving someone as good a shot as anyone with these. So it's awesome that you give some back, because I'm sure people would buy anyway, but it probably is a win-win to spur some sale demand for you guys and give back you guys just put up a killer maiden. So, a couple people going to get paid up pretty nicely.
Yeah, the last one wasn't so great. The 100,000.
Yeah,
again, we sold most of our top breeds, so I guess it wasn't a huge surprise. But we also ran really bad with the ones that did qualify. So we were due. I did too
on that one. I almost went over on the big one.
I actually had a lot of fun with this maiden, Keith. Kevin was gone, so I pretty much spearheaded. I think I ran 23 horses, and I just kind of picked away at them. I think I did like 4 at a time, and.
It was only easy. Needing 5 races made it a lot easier. I know the race times weren't, they weren't filling as fast as some people wanted, but on the flip side, you got, pretty much only maiden horses you were competing against, but having 5 in 3 days made it a lot more palatable to, even if you had to wait and, do one every hour or two or whatever it was. So,
yeah. And the flip side, to that as well is that it was not that difficult to qualify in class 1. Some of the brackets had maybe like 10 extra horses that didn't qualify. So it was like, I think 48 qualified in the class 1 funnels. And so there just weren't that many running. C2 was a little bit more competitive for sure. C3 wasn't too bad, but I think that's, kind of one of the benefits to slow fill times is you don't have as much competition. And then if you get in, anything can happen. I had some horses that I was not expecting great results from. One of them ended up winning their C2 semifinal race, I guess was the first round, since only one advanced, and then ended up winning like $2,200 in the final. So it was a fun tournament.
I got a second place in C2, so got I think $70 or $75, but no advancement. So
you only ran like what? Did you hit three?
I only had
horses?
3 horses. Yeah, I bred 1 stud and hit three times. It was actually the Verve offspring that got the second place. So it basically paid for that breed with the second place. So not a bad little horse, it looks like.
Yeah. Well, you used to breed a lot more back when you thought Zed was fun. So let's get in on the conversation, because your first point here, you've got 3 points that we're going to dive in on, assuming we have time. And the first one, I agree with this one for sure. Your statement is that breeding isn't fun, and breeding to me, it definitely used to be more fun. But it's hard for me to feel like I'm giving a fair view of it, because what we were breeding before were all such high-end pieces. Like in retrospect, it really wasn't fair, right? It's like you look back at those maidens and it's like we're pumping out such beasts all the time. Of course it was a blast for us, right?
I agreed. And I think that's the nuance that I would have liked to see the team go at in a different way. I don't, as much as I'm clamoring, and the easy take is to say bring 2.0 back, which I largely agree with, but fully understand that 2.0 also had its own flaws. And my whole argument was going from 2.0 to 3.0 was way too big of a swing, and we needed to land a lot closer to 2.0 than to 3.0. And why do I say that? So number one, my biggest frustration with the breeding change was simply, first of all, it wasn't communicated, but that I think we could put to the side. That they botched the entire thing with basically putting a breeding change on us that no one even knew was coming, right? So that was number one. But beyond that, part of the issue, or I think a large majority of the issue with breeding in the old racing system, was the racing system was so broken. You and I, we had to breed into C1, into the highest end of C1 to have a chance, right? Remember, all the horses made it to C1 basically, or they downclassed and crushed everyone that was making a lower end breed into the lower levels. So racing was ruining breeding to a certain extent. They fixed that. We can all pick it and, pick apart some minor details of the new racing platform, but I think largely we all like it, right? Like ELO was broken, that's gone. Horses are now somewhat properly bucketed. Downclassing is gone, which I think people forget about, right? Like that was a huge issue with everything that impacted everything all the way to breeding too. I just would have liked to have seen something close to 2.0 breeding with 2.0 racing. And I think, the party line I've been hearing from the team, Facundo, I think, has said it as well publicly, is like the idea of power creep being a bad thing. We've just moved power creep from the breeding side to the grinding racing side. And to me, only one of those is fun. And it's certainly not grinding races, right? And I know the grind is going to change when aging comes out, and I get all that. But to me, we're going to have power creep anyway. Breeding at least allowed you to build out these bloodlines. They allowed people to get in with like good horses that could then have value breeding down the road. We could have adjusted for power creep with changes to the class system over time, adjusting the numbers of where horses are, where they fall, and you can kind of adjust for all that. So I just would have liked to have seen something a little more nuanced, a little more thought out, rather than completely re-engineering breeding to what we have today, because I just don't think it's fun.
Yeah, I hear you. I agree with parts of it, right? I guess my thing here with Zed in general and the show and what that I try to communicate is like I might not always fully agree with the vision or the direction, but I do trust that they've got experience. These are professional game designers, and I don't. I mean, I know what was
Nor do
fun.
I.
I know what was fun. And I don't want to, like, I see these people out in social media, like, throwing a fit about the changes. And I get it because it affected their investments. Of course, they were speculative investments and possibly bad speculation. So if you speculate poorly, yeah, you might be upset, right? Maybe part of that was miscommunicated by the founders of Zed or all that stuff. Whatever. That stuff is like beside the conversation that I'm trying to have. Like, I want to support the growth of Zed, and I want to be part of the Zed creating a positive community that other people want to come into, right? And so, focusing, like, I want to have these discussions. I don't want our show to be, just us like pumping our bags and blindly saying everything that Zed is doing is great and not listening to the other side of it, right? But I also, want to put a positive spin on it and see the bright side and focus more on that, if that makes sense. So, to answer, what you're saying, I think we said it back when we had you on. Get my light back on here. When we had you on with Souls, it's like there was a lot of different ways to do it, and this was definitely a bit of a shock and a shock to the market. But we really don't know how this works out because the game is still like in the foundation stage. We don't have a full picture of what it looks like once aging goes into effect, once XP is being earned at the actual rate that it's going to be, once you can buy and sell XP, once stamina is reduced, once we have sit and goes, once we have all of these other things that we don't even know are coming, I assume, third-party things coming, the sky is the limit for all of these different things. So we're looking at like what breeding is right now in the context of a game that is not built for a user base of whatever we got, a thousand daily active users or something like that. Blind guess, but I guess so. That's where my mind kind of goes. It's like, yeah, I liked breeding more before, but I don't know that it's a fair assessment for me to just say that I liked it more because it worked well for me and I had like immediate gratification. I definitely like being able to build bloodlines out down into the elite levels. I do miss that aspect. I think this all can be like tweaked and refined. Like I've said it many times, right? I don't like how far we've gotten from base ability impacting breeds at all, so I feel like there's a tweak that should be made there sometime down the road to revalue base ability in the breeding algorithm. And whether it's like, wow, I had a really high base ability horse, say Third Head or Glorious Triumph as the stud, I get a little bit more randomness in the outcome of variance and potential to maybe not have 1.0 horses, but get something super breedish. Maybe, I don't know. One of the other things, I actually talked to GVG on the phone last week, and he was saying to me, like, don't you think that Nakamoto should have a better chance at a super breed than like Buterins? Like, shouldn't it be scaled down so like 2 Genesis Nakamotos have the highest hit rate, maybe 1%, and then scale it down bloodline and breed type from there? So I think a lot of stuff like that, Keith, could move the needle. But you hear what I'm saying?
I do. And I think that's a very fair way of looking at it. I think one thing you brought up in the beginning of what you just said was, you and I both don't have game development experience. 100% accurate. Facundo and his team do, again, 100% accurate. My only concern with using that as a main argument is ZED shouldn't be like other games. And I think and I'm speaking only for myself here, is like, ZED may blow up, but if it's just like another game, it's a 0 for me. Like, that's just not what I want. That's not what I bought into, right? So I think that's part of my concern, is like the game I see them making is very cheap horses, no major upside for most of them, and you're just kind of playing to play. And that's great, and you could probably get millions of people to do that. But I just won't probably be one of them. And I think that's my major concern, is ZED, to me, could have tried to mimic more of an in real life. It doesn't even have to be horse racing, but like franchise ownership, right? Somewhere where you can truly create value. And we could have done it if it was done properly, to have both extremes. We could have the entry level where anyone in the world can play, and you could have this really high end. But all of these changes, right? When we think through everything that's been done recently, aging, progression, breeding changes, et cetera, they're all negative to top end horse values. And that's just going to sound like, big stables whining and kicking and screaming. But small stables can't become big stables if there is no upside to their horses, right? So I saw someone post today on Twitter, there's X number of horses in the top of C1 with X profit in, recent racing, and they're listed on the market and no one's buying them. And my response was, yeah, because every horse can become like that one day, right? So we've just taken the ceiling and brought it way down closer to the floor. And I think breeding could have been the one thing that you could have left with that upside, where breeding could have really been an income stream. You could have built out those bloodlines. And I think that could have offset some of the negative value changes that came from the racing side that were much needed, right? Aging is needed, fully get that. Class system needed to be reworked, fully get that. So that's kind of my high level takeaway. Now, you did ask me to come with maybe some suggestions, right? I don't want to just be here saying this is what's wrong. So let me give a couple that I've very quickly thought of, right? I already mentioned you could have kept, closer to 2.0, but maybe you could have stopped the power creep from going all the way down to Pacer. Because I think you and I probably agree. I haven't asked you point blank, but Z268s, looking like Z1s, there's no place for that, right? We didn't need that in the old system. Definitely wouldn't need it in the new system. So there needed to be some kind of waterfall off of that breeding algorithm, but I think doing something like that would have worked. You could also, and this is a little bit more aggressive. This is something more in like what Photo Finish is doing. Require a racehorse to retire before it can breed. Now, you're doing things with taking beasts off the track if you're then going to allow them to create more beasts in breeding. Another thing you could do is we all want to reward Genesis, right? And I think, to me, Genesis have been among the most rugged, even though they get some of the positives in the new system. Most Genesis, to your point, with the BA, especially on the high end in Nax, have basically no breeding value now. What we could have done is had some sort of royalty go down the bloodline when you breed from a Genesis. So a Genesis owner somehow can get some sort of royalty stream the whole way through, and you could have factored that in. So I think there are kind of little nuances you could have done to make it a little more appealing for all. But right now, it's just not something I'm super thrilled about.
Yeah, well, understandable. I mean, the other part of it is the new racing game takes a lot more time, right? You each horse, like we've got however many in the stable that you and I started together way back when, 10, 12 really good horses. That's more than we can handle. Working other jobs, and I don't even really help you because I'm doing all the arbitrage stuff. But if there was an easier, more streamlined method of getting those horses into other people's hands and having them be profitable too, right? Like, yeah, those 6 or 7 that we know are really good, you've got people running them. But then, like, as you go down the line and breed more horses, it's like, what do I do with these, right? There's only so many users. So I think
I have one more suggestion too when you're done on this exact topic too. So go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, a lot of these issues are issues because the user base is so small. And rapid user growth, which is their goal behind all of these changes, solves a lot of these issues. Like, you're talking about these middle of the road base ability Genesis Nakamoto's. No, they don't have any value right now when, like, we could, the small user base now all has access to the top bloodlines at a reasonable price because there's not huge demand because we've all got so many horses and there's not that many places to run them, right? And so, like, if you quadruple or 10 times the user base, right, it's like that all changes, and suddenly there's a reason for people to breed with those because they're pumping out a higher level offspring, and there's places to run those because the volume is just crazy, and the game just looks totally different when you multiply the user base by however many times. And that, to me, is like what they have built this game behind. So yeah, if they don't succeed in this marketing campaign and they're not able to grow the user base, which is what a lot of the haters out there in social media say, then yeah, it doesn't make sense, right? If they do, then we'll see, right? We just haven't seen the full picture yet. Plus, we have all of these pieces of the game loop that aren't even in place yet that they need before the marketing push, which sounds like it's all very close. So that's all that I was going to say. And that's why I kind of approach it the way that I do, trying to be a positive force in the community and educate people and, acknowledge both sides. But, like, if we can create a community that is receptive to new people and welcoming and positive, that's going to help towards pushing towards that goal. That's going to make the game work. Otherwise it'll be a self-fulfilling prophecy with all of these people hating on Zed and negative and saying all these bad things. Yeah, nobody's going to come in and the game's not going to work, right?
Yeah. No, I'm with you there, and that's part of you mentioned up front. I mean, more behind the scenes of my thoughts, and I've tried to not be super vocal about it because I do agree with you. I'm not here to bash the game and bash any new person who wants to come into it. I will say, though, to the point about user growth, of course that helps everything, but if I'm a new user, like Crimson Hands, our stable right now, I don't know, we probably have 150 horses in our racing stable right now. I would suggest that 100 of those, below the ones we actually race, are worth buying if you're a new user than any new breed that they would buy at the same price. So my kind of issue is, like, I don't think low-end Nax have any value, even if we quadruple the user base to breed, because I just don't think those horses can compete in most of the races, no matter where they end up. I would go out and buy every single 1.0 or 2.0 horse before I'd go breed something if I'm a new user. But we'll see. I mean, to your
Well,
point is fair long term for sure.
Well, yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Think about it long term. All
Yeah.
of those horses, hopefully, yeah, they do get bought up and used by new users, and leveling will be faster, and they level them up and have a blast with them, and a lot of them become profitable, right? And eventually, they'll be out of all of the, out of all the level 500s, or the lower classes. They reach their peak, and there's space for these 3.0 breeds to, hopefully thrive. That's the vision, right?
I have one more
Sure.
suggestion, and this is something I didn't send you in my notes here, but it helps both areas. We're talking about kind of oversupply of horses. I would love the current breeding system, if it's not going to change, to allow you to improve the outcome of the offspring by burning one or multiple horses alongside the breed you're doing. So you have the mare, you have the stud, and then you're able to add 1, 2, or 3 horses of any kind, and the better that they are in terms of low Z number or breed type or whatever, they're giving you percentage boosts to that offspring, right? Almost kind of control your own super breed. Now, maybe you don't go all the way to what a super breed would be, but maybe we can now, number one, control the volume of horses out there, the supply of horses. I would do it every single time. Like, to me, there's no point of breeding right now, but if I could burn 3 horses that in my mind are basically worthless anyway, and now I can improve the outcome of the horse by 20%, okay, now you might have me. So I think something like that would be super interesting. We don't have any way of destroying old horses. Aging's going to work at the top end, but it's not going to impact the thousands of horses that are bred every week or every month that, are kind of just discarded after a while. So I don't know. I thought that could kind of be unique and interesting.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. Like a lot of this stuff is, I guess, to highlight the other side of it, right? It's like we've got 1,200 horses. We already have an awesome stable. Do you want to give us, like, we have no problem burning 500-600 of those horses in Arbitrage stable, right? And that just gives us more strength and more power. And that's what Breeding 2.0 did. And so, like,
but I argue you should have the power, right? And like, here's my counter, right? Like, the people with the good assets should be producing the best assets. Now, in a functioning class system, in a functioning race environment that we have today, you should be able to choose to not breed to compete with those horses. If you and Kevin have all the horses in there and can be pumping out 550s and whatever and going straight into competitive C1, great. If I'm a smaller stable, I should be breeding into C3. And you can't downclass your way down there now anymore, right? Like, to me, that's what they got rid of, is like, you should have the breeding power. Like, that is the game in my mind. And they kind of took that away with this update.
yeah, where I was going is, it's like anything with, global economics and all economics. It's like, it's a delicate balance of figuring out, like, yeah, you have people putting in a lot of work in the real world, right? And making a lot of money, fair. And then you have people suffering that had different circumstances, and that maybe not as talented, or maybe things just didn't go right. It's like, where is the balance? Like, yeah, we don't want full communism and socialism here, but we also don't want this game to just funnel everything straight to the top, to the point that it kills the entire middle class, just like the real world, right? So it is like, these aren't easy solutions, right? And so they're, as professional game designers, trying to find that delicate balance. And maybe they did overcorrect a little bit too far towards socialism. We'll see as all other pieces come into place. But what I love is that, like, once I can see the vision, it's been articulated really well, despite what some other people will say. And once it's in place, you've got that foundation, and then these tweaks can be made, and they can change breeding. They can, I would like them to, do feedback groups and stuff, and see, like, well, what don't you like about breeding? What do you like about breeding? What if we did that? Like, you throw a suggestion out there, and then they have other feedback groups. Like, what do you think about Keith's? Maybe they don't say Keith, but what do you think about this suggestion? And just, kind of see, like, what would be more fun for everybody in the system. But the key is getting that foundation, and I see them doing that. So I'm supportive of it, I guess. But I do like the idea in general.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe it's a few months away. Who knows?
So Keith, we like kind of already got into your third point. Your second point, maybe we'll circle back on it. But your second point was the that progression stinks in this grind for XP, which we've already kind of discussed. Like, we don't know what that looks like ultimately once things are in place, and we've already got the stamina fix. So we'll circle back on that if we have time here, because we already started talking about number 3 here when we were talking about breeding and this need for a top end market / economy, as you call it, because you're saying that this breeding 3.0 has kind of taken that away and brought valuations down, and now we no longer have that carrot to bring in. We want those whales. We want that sheik, the Iranian sheik, to come in and, drop $1 billion on Zed, right? That's good for everybody. So I'm with you. I want that too. I guess I just see it a little bit differently, as like horse before the cart, right? That I think what we had before was very speculative, bubble-ish. Like, I don't want to call it a bubble because I'm a believer, right? And like, I still see the vision. I saw the vision. I saw what you did. Now you no longer really see it the same way. I still do, because the way that I see this top end market is level by level, and they lay the foundation. They get a working game, and part of that was bringing valuations down. It wasn't like intentional to bring the valuations down. It was just to make sure that there's the possibility of this meaty middle class where mass users can come in and have fun and have a chance. And then, to me, from there, it can be built out, and it's going to take all of us. It's not just going to be Zed building this top end out. It will be, part of it is going to be community driven and content driven, and having these elevated events that maybe aren't even coming from Zed, having professional third-party platforms making tournaments and building partnerships with big brands that are willing to throw up $1 million for a tournament or something like that on a third-party platform. And Zed doesn't even have anything to do with that. And that's possible if you get this right foundation, this right game loop that just has mass appeal and brings all these people in. If you want Amazon to sponsor a race for a tournament for $10 million or something like that, if you got 500,000 users, that becomes possible. That's a lot of eyeballs that is on their brand, and they're willing to fork that money over potentially. If you got 1,200 users and we're all passing money around, nobody gives a shit about that, right?
Yeah, no, can't argue that point. I think, the mega upside case that you just described might still be alive, but I think every other upside case below that has been like severely either way pushed out or kind of taken off the table with all these changes, right? And it's not just breeding. Breeding to me is the straw that broke the camel's back, because I think you could live with the racing changes, to your point, to make a better ecosystem to bring more people in. But the breeding part to me was always the part that kept that high-end dream alive. If I can breed the next really good horse, now all of a sudden I'm not starting way below everyone that's progressed by me. Like, I think we forget about that. I know horses are going to age out, but like, if we have 10,000 horses that have aged out and can only race at half the time, we still have 5,000 max XP horses that are now facing, I know we're going to segment everything, and that's part of my issue with everything. But, you as a breeder cannot match those horses anytime soon. So, part of my notes for kind of like, we need a top end market is like, it's not only with breeding, but you can't conditionalize and segment racing so tightly, which we're doing now, because it's kind of the only choice we have with progression, right? Every 25 levels are essentially becoming their own mini class. We're basically putting the same horses against each other, and then just letting you work through the stages. So all of that kind of takes away that high end upside that, okay, if we get 500,000 users, Amazon might come in. What are the horses that are racing in it? Just the ones that grinded the best to get to the top?
Well,
I don't know.
I think it becomes more efficient. So like, as you're describing it, the same, I think it's going to be much more defined, narrow bands, right? Like 5 levels at a time. And of course that doesn't work in the current user base with the current racing volume. But if you've got 50,000 daily active users and all of these horses out there, then maybe that's even too wide of a band. I don't know. I guess it wouldn't be, because we already know that like a 520 and a 525 are close enough. So like, it really does become that game of breeding specialists, as Facundo kind of outlined way back when, where it's like you're trying for that variance horse. If you want that champion racehorse that's able to win that $10 million tournament or whatever in 5 years, you're gonna need the most variance that you can get, which means 2 champion racehorses with variance bred together and hitting a super breed. Those are the horses. And so like you're going to need 2 really good parents to have a chance at that. It's not like, I suppose, as we talked about on the breeding 3.0 debate show, yeah, you could mash 2 Buterins together with high variance that had no base ability, and maybe you hit the lotto like that. But I guess in reality, that one of those horses had really high variance, so it wasn't like glue, right? I think the shot is still like really long at doing that. Like, yeah, they're giving away base ability, but to pass down the variance from
Yeah,
2 blue
it's the base
horses.
ability that throws everything I totally am with them, and I've seen no evidence to go against their stance that DP and variance pass down the exact same as 2.0. I totally believe that and buy that. But when you take away BA and make, I don't want to say random starting levels, I know they're not random, but very wide range of starting levels that are outside the user's control, that's where you lose me on a game. And at the highest level, I just don't see how we can have a game where there's breeding where it's nearly impossible to make a horse better than the parents. That just doesn't, I don't know, that just doesn't jive with what I would want in a game that has a breeding mechanism, right? Outside of a super breed, we can't make a horse better than the parents, basically. I mean, you can do 2 low end whatever and hit a class lottery, level lottery, and go up, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like, that's why I think make super breeds a little bit more common. I think that they're a little bit too rare. And maybe I wouldn't feel that way if we had more breeding going on and they were popping out every day, right? With a bigger user base. I'm not sure. But I think these small type of tweaks that we're talking about, where you add in a little bit more lottery on the variant side, distance preference side, because like, yeah, I think the key really is that variance is too defined, right? Like ZSIM can predict in a pretty narrow range, like what variance you're going to get from 2 parents. If you had enough racing sample at their best distance, right, from 2 parents, you got a pretty good idea what variance it's going to kick out, and it's going to be below those 2 parents. That's just the nature of how variance and distance preference pass down. You lost some in breeding 2.0, and it's the same in 3.0. So like refining these little things in breeding 3.0 to make it so, yeah, you can get more variance. Maybe not 1.0 variance. Maybe we don't want those types of freaks coming in to the ecosystem outside of potentially super breeds. Maybe not even then. But I think like those types of tweaks, right, like can change the entire game. You agree?
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah, we'll see. I'm skeptical that they want to change breeding, but I'm with you. I'm hoping that will come, and I'll reevaluate my stance. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, all of this, to your point, can be tweaked, and I'm not adamant enough. I'm not adamant at all that it needs to be 2.0, but I'm just adamant enough that it needs to be closer to 2.0 than to 3.0.
Well, it just needs to be more fun.
More
like
fun.
I don't care.
I
don't care what we call it, right?
Like I was never checking my ROI on breeding, right? But I was having a blast doing it.
Well, and part of that's that your balance wasn't going to 0 doing it, so you knew like you weren't.
Yeah, but like I was breeding. I wasn't selective. I was breeding. Yes, we are biased. We have good horses we were starting from, but I think we forget, like in the old system, right? All the breeding that was done. Maybe you and I have more hits that could actually compete in the old C1, right? Than other stables. Fine. That was what made it maybe more fun for us. We could do well in maidens. We could then have those horses go on and actually compete in the real class system. All those horses that hit the quote unquote C1 wall, right, and got stuck there, those would all be viable horses now in lower classes. So like breeding 2.0 was making a wide range of horses that people could have been targeting for. But the problem was, as I mentioned earlier, the racing system clumped them all together. Like we've gone the opposite way on the racing system now. I just don't see why we needed to go the opposite way on the breeding system. I think it would have worked out like almost perfectly with just some minor tweaks. Get rid of the Z268s, maybe don't have crosses and pacers passing down BA, but like we should be able to pass it at least a few generations down and make it a little more fun and a little more strategic. See, I don't buy the argument that it's strategic now. I get the argument that, you want to hit a certain level and a certain breed type and a certain variance profile or DP profile or whatever. But to me, like, strategic means like breeding the best. That's what I want to do, and I don't have that option anymore. So strategy was taken away from me, and the fun went with it.
Yeah, well, let's just forget about breeding 2.0 and let's focus on breeding 4.0. Seriously, because it's like you get hung up on this. Like, it would have worked. Who cares? We're here now.
I just wanted them to try it. They could have changed it in a month.
It's they didn't. So like, we're here now. Let's focus on 4.0, because like, I really do think, I know that they listen to the show, and I do think breeding needs some tweaks. And I'm not saying they're massive, but it really isn't fun anywhere near what it used to be. And I think that, yeah, there might be some people that have more fun with it because of the way that they were operating in the previous one, but there's a fun factor that is missing, and I think that that's like the key of what you're saying. And like, when I take two really good legendaries together, we got so many of these in our stable, and
they're useless
like,
now.
Well, they're not useless. They can still produce good horses that win in this mini maiden, but it's like, you almost have to like question, like, should I be breeding my two best legendaries together, or do I need to take it and dilute it so I can try to hit this level 400 instead of ending up with a 420? Because at this point, we've got enough sample. These data guys have come up with calculations, and you breed these two levels together, this is most likely the range that you're going to be in. Like, if my median outcome of this breed is 425 from two really good parents, do I then take a shitty horse, breed it with this one, and try for a 400? It's that's a stupid game to me. So that's what needs to change. Agreed. And how you do that, I don't know. But I think that that's something that we want the team to be thinking about. And like, I don't want to just be broken records. Like, well, 2.0 might have worked. Who cares? Let's figure out what 4.0 can be, because we can be part of that solution. And like, I think there's a lot of good to 3.0, and like, we can keep that and maybe build on it. That's kind of the direction that I want to go, Keith.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Yeah, totally with you. And again, feedback sessions, all that. I think that would be a great start.
Yeah, and part of the issue is like, I'm pretty sure that they're short-staffed. Like, I go everywhere here around my house, and like restaurants, like everyone is short-staffed. It's just I don't know. That's 2023. And I think that Zed's the same way. And all of the resources are focused here. And it's like, chill out on breeding. We'll figure it out once we have a game that actually works and people want to come play, kind of a thing. So we're hanging in there. I see the vision. Keith, let's hit real quick on the progression stinks point of yours.
We've talked mostly about it at this point. And some of it, to be fair, is at least partially fixed with aging that's coming, and with the fatigue announcement that actually came tonight right before we recorded that we already touched on. But basically, my argument is like, the grind is just the opposite of what I want with Zed. Every day I don't race a horse, or I don't race it more than 2 or 3 times, I feel like I'm losing, and I have less incentive to race that horse ever again. That's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but that's not an incorrect way of looking at it. You kind of have to keep up with everyone else, or you by default get worse, and then you're just hoping Zed continues to add classes and segmentation that fit wherever that horse is right now. But if you have a 435 and you don't fall within the 400 to 425 and you stop racing for a few days, all the horses you're racing against are just getting better. And I just don't think that's a system that encourages users to have a life, to come and go, to race many horses. It encourages like a very narrow view on horses, right? Like, how many horses can you truly max out a day? 5 to 10. I was racing 20 to 30 every day because I was picking and choosing. Oh, I'll race this one a few times. I'll go to that one. That's gone now. You can't do that. So it's kind of a bunch of things all in one. But I'd rather have the progression, the power creep come from breeding, like we've talked about, and less so from clicking buttons and watching races in the with the same 12 horses all day long.
Yeah, and so we discussed like briefly before we jumped on the show, and you said that you hadn't watched any of our recent ones because you were jet setting over in Japan and Taiwan.
Big trip.
So you missed the second one that we recorded with Facundo. He surprised us, and was willing to come on for a second show, and he kind of addressed this at one point in that show, saying that this is not the intention. He completely understands that it's like an arms race right now, and it's not fun, and that's not what it's going to be like once the game is working. It's not going to be a big deal that WAGMI is getting in 16 to 18 races a day and lengthening the gap between his horses and all the other good horses. We're going to progress much quicker, and it's just going to look totally different, especially when you can buy and sell XP and you've got to worry about aging and not racing these horses in any old race that you can come about. So like it's been addressed, it's on their radar, and I think the stamina update is like the first piece to that. And this is not the game that they want. They don't want it to be just this like click fest engagement farming game. So that was music to my ears.
I agree with you, and I'm open-minded there. I just am. I wish they didn't give however many months it's going to be, 4 or 5 or whatever it is, until that game exists. That you're just giving a head start. That's like material. I know we're aging or we're progressing pretty slowly, but like the grinders are getting there. We've seen a lot of horses lapped many times over at this point if you haven't kept up. So I don't see why we needed this time in the middle. Like, why wasn't XP capped at 1,000 XP a day, right? Race 18 times, but you're just not getting XP every time you race. Like they could have made it much more equitable in the near term until the game was actually released. The second point I have is, well, 2 things. I very quickly, I would like to see them call it an open class, call it whatever, but a class where you can race as if progression never existed. So you're racing the starting level horse ability. I think that would be cool. It's a different game. You could do both, but I can go race the Crimson Chin at the starting level against all the other horses that are the starting level if they so choose to race there, and then race the progression side. It's like arcade mode versus simulation mode. But my other issue with this idea of aging kind of, the holy grail is aging will make WAGMI, Arbitrage, Crimson not race in $2 races, right? Because you're using up a very valuable race slot. I worry that progression, because it pushes so many more horses closer together in ability, will actually push a lot of those good horses to lower levels where they don't belong, because they're going to see I have an edge in a lower level where the ROI actually makes up for having a lack of an ROI racing against all the other monsters that are so close to me, because we've all progressed to the maximum of wherever we are. So I won't believe that until I see it. I personally, I've already thought about it. Does it just make sense for me to take my horses and race in the cheap ones if the ROI way outweighs racing against all of you guys in expensive races with horses that are probably a coin flip from each other, right? So that worries me a little bit, but I think that's kind of how progression works.
I think that's part of the game, right? A game of interesting choices. We each have to decide that for each individual horse, right? And if nobody's racing in the high dollar races, then you're gonna have to find somewhere to race them probably, or just wait and hope that the user base grows and activity comes down the road, and then use it then.
But it'd be nice to be able to breed new horses into those levels. Like the most a gen you get, right, is with a new horse that you think is awesome. You're never going to be more excited to race outside of your ROI lane as with a new horse. But we don't have that ability at the top end anymore. It's physically impossible, right? Outside of a super breed at 560, that's it.
Well, think about this future in a couple months. Like, you breed a 5'10", and it came from really good parents. You know that there's variance.
5'10" hurts when you say that. Oh, that just.
But you can now buy XP, right? And so it's like I can get triple XP every day. So you're racing it in paids, and and you're gaining XP quicker, right? Because they're increasing the rate of XP gain. So instead of now, I don't know how many races on average it would take you to get to 550 from 510, but it's going to be a lot quicker, not only just from natural racing, but if you can multiply that by 3, it's going to be exponentially faster. So you could breed that horse and theoretically dump a pile of money into it to get triple XP and run it up to 550 maybe in a week. That's a little bit more fun of a game, right? And then see, wait, what is this horse once it gets up into 570s? Like maybe you can do that in a month.
It could be, and I'm willing to be open there. The pessimist in me says, okay, all you're doing by buying XP is just prepaying essentially the losses that it would take you to get there,
You're
right?
being a degen.
Well, yes and no, because you're not immediately getting there, right? You're still going to lose a bunch of races, right? You're just going to get out of losing hopefully faster. But the flip side of all of this is like the argument of we progress faster. Yes, when you buy XP, you're going to progress faster than everyone else, but like everyone else is progressing faster too. So like when you get to your 550, all the 550s are now 580, right? So you're always trying to catch a moving target.
But you're going to be racing against 526s to 550s. So you're going to see, and I think you're going to move through that pretty fast. So you're maybe, I don't know, a handful of races you're going to get there to see your horse as a dominant 545 to 550 against the 525s. And you're going to have to decide, right? Is it worth continuing to push here? Like I pushed from 510 to 550, or do I sell this off and cut bait and then do it over with a different one? Like, do I have a champion racehorse here? That's kind of the high end game as I see it building out. And then there's going to be other people playing different. This is what we've been missing for so long, right? Is people playing the game in all of these different ways. And I think this foundation that's been laid brings us to that point, which is what we said we need. Like we can't all be trying to play the exact same game, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there's certainly enough coming that I'm open-minded for it. I just, yeah, we'll see. I'm still skeptical because I still think too the horses that have aged and retired are still going to outnumber. Like there's still so many good ones that they're still going to be in every race, just not necessarily all together in the same one. And that's going to become a problem as horses you're buying XP for and leveling up faster. You're just getting to the top end where there are no more conditionals that are, keeping you away from these monster horses at whatever class you're in. And you're still going to just see them all day. So like the 1.0s, the variant is still there. Yes, they're going to run 3.0 only races and whatever, but we're going to segment our way down to, next to nothing. And again, it kind of seems like all horses will be created equal at that point. I know that's not true, but that's my fear, and we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that as game designers, like they've thought about this, they've thought all these steps down the line. And one of the fun things that Facundo did say on that second show too was like he envisions this future where you're not trying to avoid Ready Set Boom. Like you're actually trying to find Ready Set Boom. Like there's so many races going off every day. It's like you enter in a race and suddenly RSB's in there. It's like, whoa, I found one with the best horse in the game, this historic horse. Whoa, I beat it in this race. And it's like a huge day for that user kind of a thing. So like, that's the way that he's looking at it building out. And
that'll be great for you guys if people are looking for RSB and you can just clean house. But yeah, no, we'll see. We'll see.
It's the dream. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I really am with you on a lot of these points. It's just a difference in the way that I try to approach it and see like what can we do here. And not that you're not one of those people that's out there being toxic, but when I see that, it's like even with you, I like your approach is right. It's like you've taken a step back from Zed. You're still playing, you're still racing some, you're still breeding a little bit here and there, but it's like take a break and see what it looks like in a month or two. Like I get it. People made investments and they're not looking good and they feel like it wasn't fair. But like you're killing yourself, but putting all this out there on social media, like all this negativity, it's like either sell your stuff and go do something productive with your life, or take a break because there's no one to sell it to, and come back in a couple months and see what the game looks like.
There's no one to sell it to.
Yeah, but you can take a break and do something with your life that isn't like how much energy do some of these people put into? Like I get it, there's passion and they love the old game, but it's like, boy, you got to figure out how to channel that energy in some sort of direction that isn't self-destructive.
I agree with you. I think there's a limit to what, I don't mind being an asshole here and there and making a, off the cuff remark, and I'll keep doing it, but I'm not going to be out there doing it every day. I agree with you. I think that's just not productive. But the passion is what should have been fueling Zed forward. And I think that at the end of the day, everyone's concern is they want to have passion. Zed was like a massive part of my life for 2 years, right? Like besides work and family and friends, like it was Zed. My racing's down like 90%. Like I'm barely doing anything now because number one, I feel like every day I don't race, I'm getting lapped. So I have less incentive to do it. Everything we've already talked about. But like I want to still have the passion, but they've taken it from me. And that's where I think you see these outbursts on Twitter and wherever. It's like people clearly want to play. They're not going away, right? But they're just complaining because like they don't see the reason to play anymore. And I think that's my concern is like the game totally shifted and we went away from what got Zed to where it was, and away from what I think people saw the future becoming. And now it's just more unclear. Now maybe it works, but we're in this no man's land here that it's going to take a while to see how all these new features kind of mesh together and play out. And we'll see, maybe the passion will come back.
For sure. I mean, some of those people, they're probably going to have to leave because they were just too attached to what they thought Zed was going to be and what it was. And they'll just never get out of that. And that's unfortunate, right? Because it's like we've always looked at Zed as a game of adaptation and knowing that things are going to change and we got to pivot. And this was a big change and probably the biggest change that's ever going to happen, I guess, besides when they re-rolled everybody's horses way back before the NFT craze. But yeah, I mean, hey, everybody's going to do their own thing. We appreciate all you guys that are guys and girls that are still around here in Zed. And hey, not trying to demonize anyone, just hoping that we can create the best community possible that brings in a bunch of new users, because that's the only way that we get to see this vision out, right?
Agree. That's where no one can disagree, I think.
All right, Keith, it was a blast, man. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for filling in for Kevin. I'm sure everybody likes you way more than Kevin.
No one can fill in for Kevin, but I appreciate you reaching out. This was fun.
Well, everybody, I'll be back next week. I don't know. Maybe I'll have Keith back. Maybe I'll get Souls to come on. We'll see who wants to talk to me. Maybe nobody wants to. But until then, enjoy the stamina refactor that's coming next week. And take it easy, Keith.
See you, Donkey.